Hello, I'm Harriet, as explained, and I'm going to talk. Well, I'm actually going to ask more questions. So I'm less concerned with telling you what I know as an academic, and more concerned with asking you questions about what you think about some issues relating to education. So my first question, since this is about cities and about how we connect cities and about how we educate potential architects to connect cities, my first question is, what is architectural education for? So we often think that architectural education is something, a big machine that should respond to the demands of industry. So practices, as they often do in BD, throw mud and they say, we're not making practice-ready graduates. We need more people with relevant to industry skills to lead our profession forward. Well, that's one thing that architectural education can be for. But these are the industrial or practice-relevant skills for now. And right now we have a recession, and right now we can't even afford to pay most of our graduates decent salaries, and half the time we don't even pay them anything at all. So it forces the question of recession. It makes us think, actually, isn't this about what practice should be doing rather than what it is doing? And if that's the case, then are schools, or should schools be, reflectors of practice, or should they really be the directors of practice? Should they be creating a space where architect students and educators could imagine a different kind of practice environment? One that's maybe, for starters, more financially sustainable, but perhaps more relevant to the public and the cities at large. So that's my first question. I did actually do some docs, because every architect has a pen, right? So I want you to write your answers, this is very interactive, on my board as I pass them around, so that's the first one. At least later. And the next question is, who is architectural education for?
You talk a tiny bit louder.
Oh my god, I'm so sorry, is that better? Yeah. Oh, that sounds a bit sultry. Okay. So who is architectural education for? Now, is it really, again, for just training students to get a qualification, so your beleaguered parents can then feel better about the fact they've just completely sacrificed their second home, or, it's 30 years on a saga holiday to make sure you got an education in somewhere economically independent? So is that who architectural education is for? Students? And is it really to make sure that you're good architects, or is it actually about making sure that you're good citizens, people who have meaningful lives, possibly in careers outside of architecture? You can make a civic contribution without being an architect. You can lead a life of consequence without being an architect. And is that what we really teach in schools? Should it be what we teach in schools? And also, is architecture just for students, obviously, to get skills and qualifications and so on, but isn't it actually about the public, maybe, too? Who is it for? Is it for the developers? Is it for the clients? Is it for the cities? Is it for the end users? These are questions we seem to struggle to answer. So there you go. Next question, you can find the answers. Okay. Third one. So who should teach architecture? Well, obviously I quite like being paid, actually. I have a cat and a dog and, hair that needs maintaining. But apart from that, who should teach architecture? Educators? Is it, or should it be practitioners? So right now you've got these emergent models like London School of Architecture, Will Hunter's thing, or STORE, these radical young hipsters that I adore who are doing these progressive things. Tom Key was learning from Kilburn. So actually we're going to take architectural education out of the big institutions, and we're going to start teaching it maybe in a more distributed way on the streets, or we're going to teach each other. Now that sounds like super radical stuff, right? But it isn't. It's what the AA was founded on in 1847. A teenager and a 24-year-old saying, actually, we don't really want to be taught in a way that's exploitative. We're going to create our own school. And that's what the Architectural Association was originally. It was an entirely kind of hipster-led, as I like to say, school of autonomy. Wonderful, right? But we're now doing it again. This is like nearly 200 years later. And we're going back to reinvent the wheel because we're utterly dissatisfied with architecture education as it stands. And is it about pedagogy? We talk about this a lot more recently. But pedagogy is about kids learning. It's more about andragogy, isn't it? Which is about adults learning. Adults teach each other, having some life experience, which you all have, quite frankly, by the time you're 16 anyway. You can make a meaningful contribution in higher education. You don't need to go on and qualify to do it. But these are the questions, right? We think that people who have the authority to teach architecture have to be architects in practice. What about the public teaching us about cities and civic situations and so on, what their needs are, and each other teaching each other? These are big questions. Okay, let me go there. Please give me the answers. I'll put them in my PhD conclusion. So, next question. Where should we teach architecture? Well, this is an easy one, right? Architecture schools, they've got heating, studios, libraries, bad canteens. Every now and again we do a private view and we get free alcohol. But, lately people are saying, like the London School of Architecture, Should we teach it in practice? Is that where you learn best? Ask any Part 3 student, should we teach it in practice? And they'll say probably not, because I've been detailing car parks for 4 years, so I'm not learning anything that's relevant to actually getting my qualification. And is it actually about, architecture that's about proto-practice? In other words, kind of something like a live project is proto-practice, right? Because you're doing something that's a small-scale, miniature version of real-time architecture. Or is it, and do we really need an academy? But then actually, don't you like reflecting what you do? Don't you like being able to read about it and think about it in a broader historical and cultural, contextual way? And did you really learn that in practice? These are big questions, right? And actually, if you're doing a live project, for example, and you're in a community, you're also learning presumably from the community, not just the context and the environment, but the people in that community. So these are, again, important questions. And my last one, which is more provocative, I took it very seriously, not only the prop thing, but the 5-minute thing. How should we teach architecture? Well, it's, obviously, I've crossed out the how to be slightly controversial. This is me trying to be controversial. Yeah. So I'm rocking it out. But should we even try teaching architecture? Can you really teach it? I mean, apart from detailing, which now engineers do, and the project management bit, which now project managers do, and as we stand here panicking about the territory that's being nibbled away by all the sub-consultants, what is really architecture concerned with? And therefore, if we still don't really know, because I don't know if we really do, then how do we teach it, or even should we teach it necessarily in a hierarchical university infrastructure? Should it be something that's more autodidactic, so it involves everybody on equal terms, so students and learners and educators all sharing the agenda and co-authoring the curriculum, or is it something that we should just keep treating as a hierarchical trickle-down structure of information? You decide. Thank you very much, everybody.